Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Leaders Playlist. My name is Renee Craven, and today I am joined by Anita Burke and David Clifford as we discuss the book The Motive by Patrick Lencioni. We hope you enjoy. Anita, Dave, hi, how are you?
Hello there, Renee. How are you? How are you, Anita?
Great.
Today we are discussing the book The Motive, another Patrick Lencioni book. This one was published in 2010. It's another nice little short, easy read. I'm a fan of Patrick Lencioni. I can say that officially.
Another small book, but powerful punch to it.
Yeah. Definitely have to grab the other ones and add those to our book club lists. So this book is structured very similar to the Five Dysfunctions book, where there's the fable at the start, or the story at the start, and then the lesson or the points that he makes throughout the fable summarised at the end. What were our thoughts?
Yeah, I loved it. Again, another great Patrick Lencioni one. Similar format to the first one that we read. I did think though that I wish I'd read it the other way around. I wish I'd read the lesson bit first and then read the story. I kind of felt that as I was reading the lesson, it was starting to thinking back to the story and thinking, oh, that's why he was talking about that there. Whereas I think, and I kind of wanted to go back and read the story again after reading the lesson to kind of help all the dots connect. But I wish I'd done it the other way around personally.
Okay. I'm going to disagree on the way it was, because I like the way he writes the stories and gets it. And then it gets to start thinking about where he's going to go with the lesson. What's the lesson that he's trying to teach you? That same thing with the five dysfunctions. So you're going, where is he going with this? What's the function? What's the lesson? What's the ways of? I think he has some reflection questions and leadership questions at the end of each one he goes through. Yeah, I like that. Again, as I said at the start, another great little small book, powerful insights in it. A way to look at leadership. I've been thinking about other things now when I look at leadership and about the roles. We'll maybe talk about that later. But yeah, it's just really, really insightful book. Renee,
yes.
Your thoughts?
The two characters, the main characters in the story part, kind of illustrated what he summarises in the back as the lesson, in that the two different types of leaders. There's those leaders that see leadership as a reward for, or a prize for, all of the hard work they've done to get to that point in their career. Therefore, they've earned that right to be, sitting in a nice comfy chair and not doing the hard stuff, versus the other character who saw leadership as more of a duty or a privilege for getting to that place or that time in his career. So I always learn more from stories, and the way that he illustrated those two characters, it was pretty obvious of which leader was a leader and which one was just kind of coasting along because he thought that's what he had deserved.
And it was key when I think it's in the story that he talked about the chief executive officer versus the chief executing officer. And what's the difference? That's an interesting way to switch it. So I was like, how could you apply that to other jobs, like chief transformation officer or chief transforming officer? Apply that to all of them, I think, but do they actually do that actual verb? Isn't it a verb? Yes. It's been a while since I've done English. Renee can testify to that.
Yeah, I agree. I was on a transformation program once where we adjusted the name of the program to be transforming rather than transformation, so that it was more action-based. And it was quite an interesting change at the time that our comms people wanted to implement. But yeah, I did notice that bit and connected nicely to that bit of executive versus executing. And I've never made that connection from those two words before. So it was cool to point that out and think about those differences.
One of the terms that stood out for me, one of the things that he said was the term unconscious unwillingness. And that really made me think about, what does he mean by that? And he, in the context, he was talking about leaders, I guess, being the CEO instead of the executing officer, the executive behaving in that way, and not doing the hard stuff that should come with that role. So they have an unconscious unwillingness to do those hard things, have those tough conversations, build their leadership team, build those behaviours, all of those sorts of things. So I really liked that, those two words, unconscious unwillingness.
I like the one, what was it called? Joyful accountability, I think, when he was describing the guy. I can't remember exactly what the phrase was. He was saying, yeah, look, that's fine. I'm not like calling them out in the bad behavior, but yeah, I'll still like you, but I don't think there's a place for you here at the company.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really good, as to say, yeah, look, you're a nice person and great, but I just don't like your attitude.
Yeah.
Maybe you should find another role.
Mm.
And that is, I think what I've seen, I don't know about you, Nita, is that a lot of times really bad behavior is tolerated, and these CEOs or leadership don't call them out. And sometimes it's actually the CEO that has the really bad behavior, and they're not being held accountable either by their board or whoever, their general peers. I don't know if you've seen anything like that.
100%. And that so much of that that part of the culture is set from the top down. It's what you tolerate and what you let slide that sets the tone for everybody else in the organisation. So when you see horrible leaders continuing to get more opportunities to lead more teams and even promoted throughout the organisation, it says a lot.
It speaks to a lot around culture, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the difference between a right or a reward-centred leader versus a responsibility-centred leader.
I made more notes about throughout the reading of the lesson about the emissions of reward-centred leaders rather than all the good stuff that the other ones do. It sort of just made more sense to me to identify those people and behaviours by those emissions. So lots of those were the first couple that he goes through really are about uncomfortable conversations. And he calls that out as the third thing that kind of permeates through all of them. So the emission of developing the leadership team, but I think that also applies to everybody within the team, not just the leadership team, and that being more about or more than just the touchy-feely fun stuff and the team days of getting everyone together, but hard stuff where it's really uncomfy, and managing the subordinates and making them also manage their teams. So that sort of stuff around the development and looking within through layers, and it being more about those uncomfy combos.
I'd be keen to get your thoughts on. I got two things I'd like to get your thoughts on, but one is: do you think that leaders who come up through that kind of technical path, right, become like developer, IT manager, chief information technology officer, all of that stuff, don't have those set of skills really? Because I find that they're more about that, the reward, they get the title, they've done their due diligence, they've done all that stuff, and they don't really want to deal with the people, which is the key role when you get to that. Because as you move up, the less you have to do with being hands-on, the more you have to deal with people. But on the business side, it's all about building our relationships. It's all about working with people, because you have to talk to this area, that area, and they have a bit of more rounded, CEO, more rounded leadership. What do you think? Is that Have you seen that being demonstrated before, or is that I'm just talking crap?
Yeah, I think it's quite a generalization, but it is probably more prominent in the technical space than outside. But I still think, I mean, I've still seen many examples of terrible leaders on the business side that are good at that soft skills, people stuff. You know, they might think they are, but it is more about the managing up perhaps than managing down. It gets them to where they are and that keeps them going. The other thing that really got me thinking about these two leadership styles was outside of corporate and politicians and their motives. And I think it applies quite similarly as well. You can see in politicians that are there for money and the power versus those that are genuinely there to serve others.
Any examples of them? Not to put you on the spot, I can think of a couple. One American ex-president would be one.
For sure.
The question around the more technical people getting into those C-level positions, I still think that if you're in a C-level position, you're still expected, you're a leader. It doesn't matter what the middle letter is. You still should be acting as a leader first, and then you've got some expertise in some, or you're making, you're the person making decisions about some kind of area, whatever your middle letter is. I have found that the more technical people that find themselves in leadership positions are still in the weeds. They're still down, they're where they want to be, down solving problems and telling people what to do and exploring new technologies and stuff like that. They're way too close to delivery, and they should be leading and thinking ahead and strategizing and all that sort of stuff. So,
well, again, it gets to the, I think, to me, it's just the way businesses are run. You normally get promoted for being good at your job, right? That's how it happens. And as you move up, and there is people that just cannot let that go. I know that's, Philip Marquet with that, his Turn the Ship Around book, about how just give them intent. There's not a lot of leaders or people who get to that C-suite role that do that, give the intent and let the people beneath them work. As a manager in IT, look at the massive changes in IT over the last 5-10 years. Right? Like, there's no way you can keep up the pace as a manager with that technology, not working on the tools. Yet you're still trying to do that and be a leader, and your focus then becomes on leadership. Focus on the technical stuff than actually leader.
I do think organisations have gotten better at that, though, recognising that those technical people need a career path that perhaps isn't just leadership and moving up through those ranks. So finding ways to acknowledge and promote and continue to escalate pay scale as well without having to go through those leadership ranks. But also the other thing I think that many organisations are getting better at is recognising that if you're a great leader, you can be great in any context, and allow those experts to manage the technical stuff and the stuff they need to know. And as a leader, you don't necessarily have to be an expert at everything within your remit. But as long as you do have that people stuff and you've got that great communication ability, that you can probably lead just about any area. I think that's a bit of a shift recently.
And Patrick does say in the book, you're not one or the other. You're not a reward versus or a privileged or a responsibility-centered leader. You can fluctuate between the two, and I guess it just kind of depends on the situation and the day you're having, and there's lots of other factors that go into how you respond to something. So I guess it just becomes to practice of how you respond to those triggering scenarios and what your role is that you're playing in that now.
So given that there's 5 things that they are working as a leader, and the reward versus responsibility. Let me replace the leadership with agile coach. Do you think there is a certain spectrum that believes that see responsibility being as a coach and want to help the organization and help the people and coach the teams, to some people who just see it as a title and don't actually have the great meetings, have the difficult conversations, lead this scrum masters, product owners, as a thought leader, all of those things that fit into the agile coaching spectrum. What's the thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it probably exists across just about any space like that. Different motives for doing different things. I mean, is it related to the trend that we're seeing of a lot of new coaches coming in that have completed a course but don't necessarily have a lot of the background experience? I don't know. Could be.
Is the motive to actually help teams, or is the motive to get a higher pay packet? Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, if they're doing it for a higher pay bracket, then I don't know where they got that from.
They're in the wrong profession.
Back away now.
These days.
But you could apply it to scrum masters and product owners, and you could apply it to any of those roles, because are you in it just so that you can have the title and say that you've done it and you've done a training course and whatever, as Anita said, or do you actually value the intent of that role and carrying out or behaving in a way that delivers that value of the role, versus just doing it because that title is cool?
Yeah, that's a question I was just wondering, because I've seen a lot of it that it's their first job even is agile coach, and it's like, wow, where did you get all your experience in uni? So I was like, you should go onto LinkedIn, Renee. There's a lot of high-paid agile coaching jobs being there at the moment. So there's definitely a motive if you call yourself one. And product owners and product managers is the new thing that seems to be very, very but then again, I would say the motive maybe aligned to the pay packet or bracket or whatever, rather than the intent of actually doing the job. Which again, as a product manager, you have to have difficult conversations and make difficult decisions.
Exactly. I think organizations are getting better at sussing that out as well, though. Now, some of them not. Some of them are drinking the Kool-Aid and just hiring by title. But there are some organizations that actually value the role of the coach and understand the value they get from the role of the coach, and recruiting for that. So, I think it just depends. It depends on the maturity of the organization, the experience in the leadership team, knowing what they're looking for, or if they're just following what everyone else is doing.
I think there's some really good stuff in the book as well, that good kind of reminders for those running agile teams or coaching and agility around the love of meetings. There's a lot of agile practices that turn into gatherings, meetings, ways to get together. And just the reminder of making those effective and engaging, and I think also translating it into any gathering, any time the team is getting together, making them enjoyable and effective. So, and I do think that can apply to morning teas or after work drinks. You don't want sort of people turning up just to show their face and get out as soon as possible. How to make those effective and engaging for people, because I think we can often find criticism when we're trying to encourage teams to get together for regular agile ceremonies, and it can appear like a whole lot of extra meetings. But if they are being done effectively and they're engaging for people, then it's a whole lot less than perhaps what you had before, and much better for the team. So there was some good stuff in there.
Feeling that pain at the moment.
I like Patrick's point around that one. He says, what is the best place to observe a leader? That's right, a meeting. If leaders accept the less than amazing status of meetings, as in they're boring and you sit around and just look at each other and they're the same old every time, it leads to bad decision making. You could extrapolate that to teams, sprint planning or retrospectives or whatever. If they're the same old boring thing every time, then you're going to get some bad decisions made because people just want to get the hell out of there. And it sets the precedent for the rest of the organisation as well. So if those meetings are bad, then other people in that meeting are going to run the same kind of bad meeting, and it's just a whole heap of waste.
Yeah. I like that. I like there's another couple of things I liked was that each of those things had a leadership reflection and a call to action. So ask yourself the questions, because sometimes we're not that self-aware. We are running bad meetings, but everyone else knows and you're just not realising that you're getting it. But anyway. And the other one was the another C title, the Chief Reminding Officer.
Yeah.
Where he's just going to keep on. And when I was reading that again, it's similar to the thing. You forget. I think it was 7 times he said you have to tell or repeat to someone before they can get the message. I've seen transformations where it's a town hall maybe once every 6 months and they don't repeat the message of why they're doing it. It's repeated number 1 and then everything else just becomes a blur. And then people just go, what the hell are we here for? Why are we transforming again? But yeah, I thought that was really good. And again, I think it was that Alan guy, isn't it, that he keeps referring to as one of, obviously a great influence on his managerial style in the books. I don't know where he's from now.
Yeah, I think if you're not sick of saying it, you haven't said it enough, kind of thing. It's when you start finding that you're like, oh, here we go, reading it again. Feel like I'm just saying the same things over and over again. That's kind of okay. That's the feeling you want to have.
Yeah. And he calls that out as one of the reasons why leaders don't do it, because they feel like they've already said it. Obviously, people haven't heard them.
I also liked how he called out that it is important for leaders to surround themselves with people who will be honest with them. So if you are running bad meetings, you want people in that meeting to tell you run really bad meetings or whatever it is. And the character in the book was that person that was the only person being honest with him, because his leadership team certainly weren't.
Yeah, otherwise everybody else there is just stroking the ego, feeding the reward.
Yep.
Got a lot of that going on as well.
Yep.
But this would definitely be a recommendation for anyone in a C-suite role, you think, to read this book.
And agile coaches.
And agile coaches, of course. And scrum masters.
And I think any role, any kind of leadership role, people who are responsible for other people.
And those that are perhaps have a desire to move up, because great to start questioning your own motive early, and make sure you are doing it for the right reasons and want it for the right reasons.
Anita, Dave, till next book.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Leaders Playlist. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to share our podcast with your family, friends, and work colleagues. Until next episode.